Welcome everybody. This is Trafford's Council Standards Committee meeting, the first one of the new municipal year. I'm Councillor Kevin Proctor, Chair of the committee. Got just a couple of housekeeping notices before the meeting formally starts. First of all, fire safety. I'd just like to convey fire safety advice for the meeting. If the fire alarm, a continuous siren sounds, please leave the building in a calm manner by the nearest fire exit. Everyone should assemble in front of the town hall and must not re-enter the building until instructed to do so. In terms of broadcasting, please be aware that this meeting will be recorded for live and for subsequent broadcast at the council website. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except for our confidential or exempt items, and the footage will be on our website for 6 months.
I think recorded today. You can see the facilities.
We're using the new technology, so we've got the cameras on the ceiling.
Oh, that's
so
the camera.
it is, yes. There's
Really?
3 actually, so you're all going to be captured. Yeah.
Okay, so even last night I'm still using the...
They used the old system last night. It's because I'm the only one who knows how to use it yet. So.
Okay, well done.
And just finally, if you can remind people to use their microphones, because it's a very difficult room to hear without them, so it would be grateful if you would all remember to do that, and I'll try and turn them off as well, which I'm sometimes guilty of myself, after you've spoken. As we've got a few new members this year, it's worthwhile going around and saying, I think, who we are, particularly a warm welcome to our new committee members. So I'm Councillor Kevin Proctor, Chair of the committee.
I'm Councillor Shen Kezhi, the Vice Chair of the committee.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Emma Malpass, the Head of Legal and Governance and the Council's Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Good evening. I am John Addison and the Council's Principal Governance Manager.
I'm Clive Griffiths, Independent Co-opted Member.
Tony Rudden, Partington Parish Council.
Hi, I'm Councillor Frass for Timpley North.
Yeah.
It was on.
Oh. I'm Dave Acton and I represent Goat Hill Ward.
I'm Councillor Jones and I represent Brooklands Ward.
Councillor Shona Gilbert and I represent Ashton-on-Mersey.
I'm Harry Callahan, the Senior Democratic Support Officer and the Service Officer for this committee.
Okay, thank you for that, and a particular warm welcome to those new members to the committee. It's good to have you here this year. Moving on to the agenda, attendances. We've had quite a few apologies from Councillor Winstanley, Councillor Axford, Councillor Weston, Councillor Eckersley, and we've also had apologies from Mr Whiting and Mr Brown. Any other apologies anyone aware of? The Councillor Coggins is now here, so we've got that recorded. Item 2 on the agenda, membership of the committee. This is obviously noting the chair, vice chair, and the committee members. So it's just really for noting us. Anyone's got any comments about that? Okay, moving on to item 3, terms of reference 2025-26. Again, that item is just for noting. Yeah.
Can I just a couple of points? The Appendix 1 is that you're talking about that now. It's terms of reference, and then it
terms of reference, yeah.
Yeah, Appendix 1. Has this been published? Because I thought there were a couple of obscurities. If you go down to where it says oversight and monitoring of other guidance they consider helpful in the context of the committee's role and functions, to whom does they refer? Does it refer to the full council or to the committee?
What line are you in?
It's bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's after the
I'm just trying to find that.
You've got the one, the indented items, and you've got oversight of other members' protocols, and the next one after that is oversight and monitoring of other guidance they consider helpful.
You saw that?
Any of the officers have a sit on that? I'm just trying to...
Yes, Chair. So the first page is Schedule 1. If you go to the page behind that, that's Appendix 1, and they're the bullet points that are being referred to. In terms of oversight and monitoring of other guidance they consider helpful in the context of the committee's role and functions, they is the Standards Committee.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. It's such a long list, it becomes a bit
This one.
ambiguous.
This one. They. That's the question.
Yeah.
And can I just ask a couple of other points?
Yeah.
The last 3 bullet points, the style changes. You've got oversight with a capital O, when I think it should be lowercase. And then you've got to preparing and to provide. I don't think that actually reads very well. It's as though some of the different style has come in.
Yes.
And I think it could be tidied up if this is a published document.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. It needs a little bit tinkering really to change that round. So thank you for the point.
It's stylistic, but it's
it's
important to get it right.
We'll take those on board.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments on that report? No? Okay. Moving on to the minutes of the meeting of 6th of March. Are those present? Everyone okay with those? Yeah.
Sorry again. I have raised this with Harry. I mean, the minutes are fine, but they are very narrative. Do we really want minutes that are that narrative, especially in view of the fact that this committee will be taking on extra roles under the new regime? And if we have minutes this long for the meeting we had last time, it's going to be 2 or 3 times longer when we get extra business to consider.
I suggest we try and make them more concise.
Yeah, given the fact that these meetings are recorded and a publicly available recording, I don't think we really need Mr. Griffiths said so-and-so, Mr. Griffiths said something else. It could be a much briefer summary, but I mean, that's presumably how the council keeps its minutes at the moment.
That's pretty much a council style, really, isn't it? The way we do record that.
I did share them with the chair at the time, and Councillor Protz came back to me suggesting that he was happy with them in the current style. I think in the email that you set out, you sort of just your thoughts were that it would be a quite considerable reduction in terms of removing any sort of detail of any discussion. I mean, I'm happy to reduce the minutes as you see fit, but obviously that's up to the committee.
I think Mr. Griffiths has a good point that as we're going forward, we are going to take on more work, so there's going to be a lot more things to record. So if we could somehow make them a bit more concise, I think that would be helpful. Yes, Councillor Goggins.
Thanks. I'm a big believer in really short minutes. I really think anything other than the decisions and things that we agree to note don't need to be noted. That being said, I think the council does have a style, and I think if one council were to deviate, if one committee were to deviate from that style, residents might then say, well, why are we not finding out what's happening in standards? I suspect that our procedures haven't caught up with the fact that everything is now recorded. And of course, it is helpful to be able to search. So you can't search on the video if you want to go back. So I just wonder if that would need to be the sort of change that needed to be made across committees rather than just one at a time.
Just one committee, yeah, you have to consider.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. We have, over the last couple of years, made an effort to concise minutes. There is a style that we do put a lot in. Some authorities do put less in. One thing to remember is that the purpose of a set of minutes is for posterity. They last forever. and it is to give you the reports, for example, that you receive do not need to last forever. The minutes do. So the purpose of a set of minutes is to provide an overview of what was discussed and ultimately what members agreed. We can tailor it depending on the item that members are discussing. Some more straightforward items could be shorter, and we can look at that. And we will look at that. But I just want to be careful that we don't. Part of the record of a set of minutes is the member debate.
Yeah, so I think there's a sort of consensus there that we're going to keep to the same sort of format, but try and, if we can, possibly make them more concise, so it's easy to read. I think that's seems fair somewhere. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Mr.
Kevin, just as a standards committee, it's probably something that we can make some guidance on to other committees, if we think so. If we want to kind of make them more concise and say we're a more modern organisation now that not only needs to have minutes to have tasks and actions in them, and the recording is a such and such a place. But that's up to the committee.
I think we can consider that.
Just quickly on this comments. So maybe we can also introduce technology, help us taking meeting notes and do the concise version. For example, nowadays our computer all have the Microsoft Copilot. They can record it locally using transcript, generate the meeting notes, and then the Copilot can give you concise meeting notes.
Privately, I've trialled it. It's pretty good, but it comes up with some hilarious mistakes that we couldn't publish. And also the purpose of a set of minutes is to provide a general overview, which it's the consensus of the meeting, which sometimes a computer can't grasp. Okay. I suspect the technology will be there one day, but it's not quite there yet.
Should only ever be used as a guide and template to what you publish.
That's possibly a thing for the future then. At some point it improves. So have we got full agreement on that then? That we're going to continue with the existing sort of style and format, but wherever possible try and make them minutes more concise but accurate as much as we can. Okay, happy to move on. We've had the work programme for 2025-26 from the Governance Manager. Fairly weighty, really, in terms of the workload. But I think it's very interesting work, and hopefully make the committee, much more interesting work for us to take part in the year. It is, as I say, it is quite challenging, so we might need to look at some sort of rescheduling and ways of managing the workload during that year. If you look at September, for example, that's pretty large weight of work to actually come across there. So, maybe things we need to do to manage that workload. Are there any other members' comments on the work programme? Yep.
Just to say that because we've reviewed the social media policy quite regularly, that might be quite a short item in September.
Yes,
the others might be a bit weightier. But yeah, it has had 2 really good reviews in the last couple of years. But you never know what could happen between now and September in terms of social media, I guess. So.
Yeah, I actually think about it. That is correct, but there's a lot of items in there, isn't there? So I think we need to play it by ear really as we go along and see how the work manages. And hopefully we will be able to rattle through those. Any other comments on the work programme? No?
Yeah, just as it looks like it's a weighty agenda, those policies, I would recommend, and I don't know how the committee works, being new on the committee, that members read them beforehand and come with questions rather than going through it line by line or doing presentations, because that can be a lot more effective. But you may do that already.
Yeah, well, it's an assumption that happens, but yes. Yeah, it's good to sort of clarify that, really. Okay. So moving on, we have what I thought was a presentation by Victoria Talbot on the member development. Apparently she's not here this evening, so I think Mr. Addison's going to
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you can tell I'm not Victoria.
Briefing on it.
Yeah, I will just provide you a quick overview of what the steering group does and take any questions. And if I can answer them, I will provide you with some feedback. We've had this steering group for a number of years now, I think 10 years, with its purpose, which is unusual for councils. We have this group, which is a good thing. It provides the council with a member-led approach to the development and delivery of training needs and identification of member training needs to members. We identify the training needs through a number of ways, and it starts with members' induction. So we look at members' core skills and strengths and areas that they may wish to develop or learn. Some of them may be so brand new to the council, a full understanding of the council is the first port of call. We take feedback from training sessions and from individual committees. Democratic Services provides feedback on areas that we think members may be interested in training, and the steering group itself, the members on that group work with members from their parties to identify training needs. The purpose of the group is to identify and create a training plan for elected members and ultimately review key documents. One of the things they've produced is this new member induction toolkit, and obviously lead and assist in delivering any training to members. Some of the things that have happened over the last few years is external providers have been brought in, some additional training has been sought for the e-learning programme that we have for not only staff but for members, and doing bite-sized training, maybe before a committee meeting when members are already coming into the town hall. We try and put like a 20-30 minute training session on something that may be relevant, or on more weightier topics, individual training sessions, and we try and identify dates well in advance. The steering group does report to this committee once a year to provide an update on what it's been doing and what its future plans are. One of its key successes over the last few years has been a new member induction, which has significantly changed over the last 4 or 5 years and will continue to change. The toolkit is something unique that we have, that we provide new members. We provide tours of the building, tours of facilities, introduce them to CLT and key officers that members are going to need to liaise with throughout their day-to-day lives as councillors. And also, for the next year, next municipal year, new members then will get a personal welcome meeting from the Chief Exec, which was in direct response to feedback. I have nothing further to say, Chair, unless members have any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, really good. Just a few points. Obviously, new member inductions are really good, and you've got a really good handle on that. Volunteering for members and giving people tours and that kind of thing. Is there any thought on training for key functions, any concept of mandatory training for key functions such as chairs of committees or vice chairs of committees that we should be looking at? Because I've done some of these training myself, volunteered for quite a few in the last year, and they're really good, and I think they'd be really beneficial to people.
There are some mandatory training you have to do, like the planning training before you can sit on planning committee. I don't think we can necessarily make it mandatory, but we are looking at providing some key question training for members and chair training this municipal year. So in the next few months, something should be coming out around chairing of meetings.
Can I have a follow-up question? Just on, you think you can't make it mandatory. I understand probably a little bit why you won't want to do that, but I do think that chairs and vice chairs of committees should be highly recommended to do a set of training, be that LGA or some of the other training that's around North West employers, that kind of thing. All of us can learn, however long in our experience we've been. And there's a lot of people who've got a lot of experience on these committees and maybe haven't been on training for a long time.
I would agree. I think regular training is something that another authority I've provided, chair training regularly. We haven't done it here for a little while. It also opens opportunities to those who may want to be chair but may not have the confidence because they've never done it before. While I can't, as an officer, mandate it, it is something that members could recommend that the council adopts. And obviously, we have a member development programme, and that's something we can suggest.
I think some of those type courses have been offered to quite a lot of chairs, and I don't know how many have actually taken them up. So maybe it's not significant, but generally they are offered. So, but I think we could possibly do more of that, really. And as we say, highly encourage chairs to take up, and vice chairs to take up those opportunities. Councillor Coggins, you had a question?
Oh, there we go. In response to that last comment, presumably parties who are selecting chairs can make it a requirement internally within your own party that we will only select chairs and vice chairs who've done the required training or are willing to do it within 3 months. So even if the council isn't able to enforce it, each party is able to, do the best they can on those bases. This looks really good. I know when Councillor Jerome and myself got first elected in 2018, I think there was a 2-hour training in the basement of the town hall where I've never been before. There were no chairs. We stood up the whole time. And it was on stuff which I've literally never heard of since. And that was it and what they told us was, the parties just train internally. They have, institutional history. They have knowledge. And of course, as a fourth party that hadn't been on the council before, we didn't. So it's really good to see all this here. I put my own package together through the LGA and SIPFA and lots of other things, and lots of very patient Trafford officers giving me their time. So this is looking really good now. The only omission I wanted to note was carbon literacy training. I did ask recently, and out of our 63 councillors, only 5 have done carbon literacy training. I know at least 3 of those are in the Green Party. I'm one of them. That means that at least one of the other parties has absolutely no one who is carbon literacy trained. And for example, our 43 Labour councillors, at most 2 of them are trained if they've got the other 2 places. Given that tackling the climate crisis is one of our corporate priorities, and this is the internationally recognised standard on getting people, up and running on what we can do, it seems like this should be a priority. And I'd like to see all councillors doing it, really. Our officers are doing better. There are many more officers trained, although we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, I think that's something that we should encourage quite considerably, really, to build that take up, if we possibly can. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll feed that back.
Yes, yeah. Any other questions?
Not a question, just feedback, really. I think Victoria does a really great job and puts together a really brilliant programme. I appreciate that she spends time trying to make it flexible for those of us who work full time. So I think she does a great job. I just wish I could attend more of it myself, but that's the way it is. If I was part-time or retired, I'd be going on a lot of it. It's a really good offer, and it's certainly improved since I was elected 4 years ago.
Good. That's one question I was going to ask, really, about the thing. Is there a big increase in online take-up? Do we have some stats on that? Because it's really important, that, because there's so many members who can't attend. It seems because of work or other commitments. I think it's really important, and I think the take-up is increasing.
It is quite significantly. We've also recorded some sessions for members to view at their leisure, but I can get you some stats on that. But the take-up has increased since we've pushed the e-learning.
Yeah, that's really good. Any other questions on that? Moving on to item 7, Member Code of Conduct Hearing Process. So we've had a report from the Director of Legal and Governance, and it's basically talking about setting up a constitutional working group to undertake a review of the constitutional arrangements in terms of the hearing procedures. So there's a series of recommendations which members will have had. Do you want to add anything more to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And this is the first of two reports I'm bringing to this evening's committee. And as part of the committee's new role and remit in terms of providing that home for the Constitutional Working Group in their work in reviewing parts of the Constitution. And when we had initial discussions about the possibility of this becoming part of the role and remit of Standards Committee, we suggested that as officers we would bring recommendations to the committee in relation to those areas of the Constitution that we feel could be reviewed. So this is a proposal to review the provisions in the Constitution that relate to Standards Committee hearing procedures, and the ask of the committee this evening is to note the current arrangements and to approve the establishment of that Constitutional Working Group to take away that piece of work in terms of the review of the current arrangements. What could be done differently? Does anything need to be done differently? And then that group will return to report back upon their recommendations. I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Jones.
Thanks. Mostly for my benefit because I'm a new member on this committee. How do these hearings work? Does it come before the full committee or is it a subgroup or it says a panel in there? That's why I asked the question.
Yes, so that would depend on the exact circumstances of the case, but if there were reason to have a formal hearing in relation to a member's code of conduct complaint, that would come for hearing, if it were appropriate, to a sub-panel of the Standards Committee. The arrangements set out in the Constitution flesh that out in a little more detail and set out some of the intricacies of the actual process, the practicalities, what that looks like. But it's felt that there is certainly room for strengthening those current provisions to provide extra clarity in the event that we are in a position where we need to convene that sub-panel to hear a member's code of conduct complaint.
And a question on numbers. How many of these panels have been convened in the last 5 years?
I don't know the answer to that, I'm afraid. Certainly something I can find out and bring back to you.
I'm personally aware of the one, but maybe there's been others.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is, during this process, do we have any peer review or maybe comparison with other borough or maybe with LGA to see if our process align with maybe best practice?
Absolutely, Councillor Izzy, and they would certainly form part of the discussions and considerations of the Constitutional Working Group. That is a cross-party group, so everyone has the opportunity to feedback their views in relation to what they feel the process and the procedure should look like and whether there is a requirement to amend the Constitution to reflect those recommended views.
Okay. Cool. My second question is, will this review consider introducing or enhancing any guidance on sanctions for code breaches?
Absolutely, and I certainly have, over the course of the last 6 months, been looking at the way other local authorities set out these arrangements in their constitutions, and it's very sensible to set out in those details, not only in relation to the process itself, but in relation to the sanctions that any subcommittee is able to impose should it be found that a councillor is in breach of the member's code of conduct. So it's that sort of detail that will be looked at in terms of what our current provision is and whether that needs to be clarified or strengthened. Does that help?
Are we going to share these results?
Yes, so the Constitutional Working Group will return to Standards Committee with the recommendations, and if those recommendations are approved at this committee, that will go on to Scrutiny Committee for them to approve, and then onto the Executive, onto full council as well, if any amendments are recommended to the Constitution.
So this is a very thorough process, really, isn't it? And there's lots of scrutiny, during that whole review of the process. Yeah.
Can I just ask, at this meeting we're actually going to be setting up 2 constitutional working groups. That's the recommendation, isn't it? One to look at this and one to look at the other matter. Now, as I understand it, taking up your point, Chair, about the workload on the 18th of September, we will be discussing the recommendations for from both these constitutional working groups on the 18th of September, I presume. In addition to looking at all these other items that you already said looked quite a heavy programme. It strikes me that we're actually creating a very large or seems as though we might be creating a very large workload.
Yeah, if I could just step in there, and I'm well aware of the discussions that took place before the role and remit was changed in relation to concerns about increased level of workload, perhaps some uncertainty about what this might look like moving forwards. There is always flexibility. Nothing is set in stone. I think we acknowledge that the role and remit has broadened. There is, if it transpires that the meeting in September is just not viable to proceed as planned, the possibility is to consider that items be deferred. So I hope that provides some assurances to you all.
I think we sort of picked that up really when we saw the work plan. Certainly I did. I think in certain periods of the year where this could be quite onerous. Councillor Fass?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If we proceeded with this set of constitutional working groups, when would that change the constitution happen? Would it be at the AGM in 26? Therefore, normally that's when you would inaugurate those changes. So there's no panic to do it in September or October. If it gets deferred, as long as all of your processes are complete and then it's brought back to scrutiny and back to standards by next May, we don't need to squeeze it all in, do we? There is no urgency in that sense if it's done at an AGM cycle.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Councillor Coggan.
On the second one, the council meeting arrangements, I was on the original group, and that set up that we would do a pilot for about 6 months and then reconvene. So that one could actually be very short. It could just be that we say, yes, that's worked fine, and we continue. It could also be more complex. It could be, this isn't quite working, let's go back to step one. So it could be that the second of these is quite a small piece of work.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that one in a little while. Any other comments? Councillor Gilbert?
Only to say that I welcome this review. I think it's quite timely. I don't think we've looked at this at all in the last few years, and given national stories about councillors' behaviour in other councils, heaven forfend that happened here at Trafford. It's be good to have reviewed it all now.
I think at Trafford we have quite a good record, really. There's not been many really difficult issues, and but you never know what the future is going to bring. That we could suddenly have a series of cases, so it is important we do get this through.
Yeah, and one of the principles of the parts of the Constitution that are being identified for possible review is the length of time that they have been in place and not reviewed, because, as you say, the world is ever evolving, and it's really important to keep the provisions of our Constitution under review, particularly those that haven't been looked at for some time.
Any other comments on this? No. Well, we've got a series of obviously recommendations to approve. Are we happy to agree then? Thank you. Okay, moving on to the review of council meeting procedures. Ms. Malpass is going to present this one to us.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, again, I don't propose to address you at any great length, but more than happy to take questions or provide any clarification that's required. So as Councillor Coggins has highlighted, there were changes made to the Constitution last year in relation to the conduct of council meetings, particularly around meeting time and length, petitions, the way in which questions are put and answered, and motions as well. They have been in place for 12 months now, so apologies, this review is slightly overdue, but it's important that we do review those changes, and as Councillor Coggins again averted to, there might be no need to change, or there might be really valuable insight and feedback from members who have lived those changes over the last 12 months, and it may be recommended that the changes are required. But again, the recommendation for the committee this evening is to approve the setting up of the Constitutional Working Group to undertake that review and report back.
My personal view is that it has improved things, but you can always, I think, make improvements, further improvements if we look at it and see what's gone well and what maybe hasn't gone so well. But generally, I think it is an improvement, but we'll see what the group comes up with suggestions. Any other comments from members? Councillor Gilbert?
Yeah, I think that the council meetings definitely needed some kind of tightening up, just to make sure that everything was contained and that everything that we do is really meaningful. And you know, they all have worked absolutely fine in principle. I'm just curious about the petitions and how that they've worked going to executive, because I haven't had sight of any of that.
I haven't had a petition come through the executive yet, unless one snuck through whilst I wasn't watching. No, that hasn't been tested yet.
Oh, thanks. Just because I can't tell whether, as a petitioner, I would rather just petition the executive, or I'd rather have the full audience of the full council. And I kind of think, you know, maybe it's a shame, because you want to be accountable and you want to be seen and you want to be visible. Equally, you want your council meetings to be very effective. So I guess that's an area where I'm particularly interested in feedback from the public. Thanks.
I have a few questions. First one about the questions. I think from last year we only be given 10 minutes for the questions. For all questions in total, only 10 minutes. Is that too short? I think somehow this kind of time, I think we all understand the reason to do that is to just manage the time, right? But on the other side, this time cap also reduce the depth and the breadth of the questioning, and also affect our debate, our democracy.
Yeah, that's a reasonable, really reasonable point to make, and it's the purpose of setting up the Constitutional Working Group so that those real in-depth discussions can take place. The purpose of bringing this to this evening's committee is to approve the recommendation for that group to be set up, so those discussions can then take place within that forum.
So you said our vote today is just to say to agree
to
set up a team to review that.
We're just agreeing that it's
right. Okay.
Happen.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
And I guess as well, individual members can sort of contact whoever's been selected to be on that group to give their views. So you know, it's not a closed shop in a sense, is it? It's something that's potentially open to people to. Your ideas could go to maybe you, but somebody else. You could put your other ideas through to them. And Councillor Frost has already come up with some ideas as well. So yeah, there'll be lots of ideas that go into the pot in this, and they will make that decision. Proceeding with it. And Councillor Frost?
Yeah, well, shan't perhaps repeat myself. It sounds like we are focused on the principle of this, not the detail then. Is there any appetite for members of this committee to put forward things that should be in the frames of the terms of reference, or are you very keen that we do that through other channels for whoever's appointed from each group to be on the CWG, and you don't really want that recorded as part of this first meeting?
No, this is to do with agreeing the process, but it's good to have those ideas, but they need to be filtered through really to make sure that they reach the right people. Any other comments? So are we happy to agree those recommendations outlined in the report? Yep. Thank you. Now moving on to item 9, urgent business. I've not been notified of any urgent business. So that's the end of the